Welcome to the Daily Boogie.
Okay, so let's begin. This story dropped a couple of days ago. FBI investigating millions of mishandled dollars funneled from Australian government to Clinton Foundation. It's good to see you all in the chat. Let's get a debate going. If you disagree, let me know. Trolls are welcome. Dissenters go to the head of the queue. The FBI has asked retired Australian policeman turned investigative journalist Michael Smith to provide information he has gathered detailing multiple allegations of the Clinton Foundation receiving tens of millions of mishandled taxpayer funds, according to LifeSet. I have been asked to provide the FBI with further and better particulars about the allegations regarding improper donations to the CF funded by Australian taxpayers. Now, we need a little background. Just quickly, of note, the Clinton Foundation received some $88 million from Australian taxpayers between 2006 and 2014. 2007 is when Julia Gillard's party came to power, and just a couple of years later, she, some would say, betrayed the Prime Minister of the time, Kevin Rudd, and became Prime Minister herself in a backroom deal, believe it or not. We changed Prime Ministers more than most people change their underwear, so this is not entirely uncommon. But she did it. Reaching its peak in 2012-2013, which funnily enough is the era when her government was voted out and replaced by the Conservatives. Which, coincidentally, we're sure Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard's last year in office, okay? So I just want to give you a little bit of background. Michael Smith, for a long time, was a very respected very popular talkback radio show host. I actually spoke to him once. He's very cordial. Gentleman, very interesting man. Could be controversial to some. You know, he touched buttons. He touched raw nerves. I mean, but that's kind of like the MO for talkback radio hosts. Successful ones, especially. And he was a particularly successful one. Now, Julia Gillard, as we call her Jules. Oh, just quickly, if you want to follow Michael Smith on Twitter, there he is. Jump on Twitter, follow Michael Smith. He runs Michael Smith News. And he's the guy that the FBI are seeking out to shed some light on this Clinton Foundation saga down under. Michael Smith News. So I want to go in the time machine. And I want to zoom back to 2006. New York Times, 2006. Remember our original article? Between 2006 and 2014, the Clinton Foundation received $88 million from Australian taxpayers, okay? Starting 2006, finishing 2012-13. Clinton makes up for lost time in battling AIDS. New York Times. Here we go. There's a particular quote I want to see. The Clinton Foundation's budget last year was $30 million, raised from private donors. Mr. Clinton, who oversees its operations full-time, has plunged into many causes from childhood obesity to tsunami relief to global warming, but he has made his most substantive contribution on AIDS. Isn't he an angel? Mr. Clinton and his foundation have undertaken projects with 24 developing countries, raising money to post nurses in rural clinics in Kenya, mustering experts to train hospital managers in Ethiopia, and buying drugs for thousands of sick children, among other things. His foundation has also negotiated steep cuts in the price of AIDS medicines through deals with drug companies that cover more than 400,000 patients in dozens of countries. We will come back to that very important point. Dr. Bernard Picul, sorry for the pronunciation to the French speakers there, who led a campaign for access to medicines for Doctors Without Borders from 1998 to 2003, credited Mr. Clinton and his foundation for showing independence from the politically powerful drug industry and helping to accelerate the decline in prices for generic AIDS medicines in developing countries. Repeat. Thank you, Mr. Clinton, for helping to accelerate the decline in prices for generic AIDS medicines in developing countries. This man was in charge from 1998 to 2003. Make a note of it. For years, he tried to coax Dr. Paul Farmer, known for his work caring for the poor in remote rural Haiti, a country that's been in the news recently, perhaps not for the right reasons, to recreate his model of AIDS treatment in Africa, the heart of the epidemic. Okay, so make note of all of these little nuggets as they come up. Got another one for you. Report. Clinton Foundation used taxes to give AIDS patients diluted drugs. Allegedly. Allegedly. The Bill, Hillary and Chelsea Foundation likely partnered with a corrupt drug company producing watered-down HIV/AIDS drugs for African patients in exchange for donations to the foundation and multi-million-dollar consulting contracts for Bill Clinton, a new congressional report states. The foundation partnered with the Indian drug manufacturer Ranbaxy in 2003 to procure cheap HIV/AIDS drugs for African patients. Ranbaxy deceived the US government into buying watered-down drugs in multi-billion-dollar deals, likely negotiated by the foundation, according to a September 2016 report by Representative Marsha Blackburn's office. Her website summarised the report's key findings in this way. The Clinton Foundation likely facilitated the distribution of watered-down HIV/AIDS medications in a sub-Saharan Africa through its Health Access Initiative. The distribution of watered-down HIV medications in sub-Saharan Africa may have increased patient mortality rates. Repeat, may have increased patient mortality rates. Watered-down HIV watered-down HIV/AIDS antiretrovirals were purchased with taxpayer money as a result of price agreements, some of which were likely negotiated by the Clinton Foundation. What did we just read? Dr. Bernard Picul, who led a campaign for access to medicines for Doctors Without Borders from 1998 to 2003, credited Mr. Clinton and his foundation for showing independence from the politically powerful drug industry and helping to accelerate the decline in prices for generic AIDS medicines in developing countries. Price agreements, some of which were likely negotiated by the Clinton Foundation. Quote, President Clinton was personally enriched with million-dollar consulting contracts by a friend of convicted felon and Ranbaxy advocate Rajat Gupta from 2002 to 2008. Back to the beginning, between 2006, 2012-13. FBI investigating millions of mishandled dollars funneled from the Australian government to the Clinton Foundation. Let me show you this. I found this. I went back to 2006 for this one. The ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the Australian taxpayer-funded Broadcasting Corporation. This was a radio show. This is the transcript from this radio show all the way back to February 22nd, 2006. Mark Colvin was the host on the day, and in somewhat glowing, fawning language says, and I quote, "Only the extremely well-heeled had the chance to experience the legendary charisma of former President Bill Clinton when he spoke at a conference in Sydney today. Around 700 of them had each forked out $2,400 for the privilege, but there was a wider benefit to the appearance. On the sidelines, Mr. Clinton had time to launch a new HIV/AIDS partnership with the Australian government. Remember, 2006. Okay. Australia is injecting $25 million into the Clinton Foundation to provide cheaper anti-retroviral drugs to the Asia-Pacific region, Jennifer Macy reports. Now, to be fair, the first article I mentioned was specific to Africa. Maybe expansion was on the cards. Maybe the effort, maybe the charity was so effective. Well, 2 or 3 years after we discovered the perhaps problematic makeup of these anti-AIDS drugs, maybe 3 years down the track, it was so effective and so powerful in combating this horrible affliction that millions of people suffer with, that the Australian government at the time just had to get on board. We just had to get in and fork over some taxpayer hard-earned for what is undoubtedly a good cause and could not be referred to as anything thus. Or anything else. It's only a good thing, and we need to jump in, we need to have some empathy, because we've got big plans for the future.
Well, I am here today to make it absolutely clear. The United States is committed and will remain committed to achieving an AIDS-free generation. We will not back off. We will not back down. We will fight for the resources necessary to achieve this historic milestone.
Fight for the resources.
Today, I am announcing that the United States will invest an additional $80 million to fill this gap. These
$80 million. Energized crowd, low energy crowd.
These funds will support innovative approaches to ensure that HIV-positive pregnant women get the treatment they need to protect themselves, their babies, and their partners. So we will, for the first time, get ahead of the pandemic there. And eventually, an AIDS-free generation of Zambians.
Increased, what was it, 30 million from America in that particular year. For the observant ones, look behind her. 2012, AIDS2012.org. Let's go back. Australians started tipping in money in 2006, but when are the FBI investigating? Between 2006 and 2012-13, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm not alleging anything. These are all free open documents. Anybody can read them and look at the clips and put this together themselves. So I don't think we're doing anything groundbreaking here. Just a nice little crochet. Nice little bit of background, perhaps.
Will be in sight. Think of the lives we will touch in Zambia alone. All the mothers and fathers and children who will never have their lives ripped apart by this disease. And now multiply that across the many other countries we are working with. In fact, if you're not getting excited about this, please raise your hand and I will send somebody to check your pulse.
Oh, she's so charming. It's a shame she didn't win. So yeah. 2012, big push to get more money in. Now, I'm not a big follower of Q. I know QAnon is a big deal, don't get me wrong. And for those who are, I'll refer this back to you. I do believe special mention was made at some point to AIDS foundations, AIDS funding, if I'm not mistaken. And I watched a little clip of Tracy Beans a couple of days ago in preparation for this. And she played a clip where Barack Obama was talking about, we need to get funding for AIDS, we need to do things about AIDS, put your money into AIDS funding. So, I just found it interesting, that particular link. Check this one out. From The Australian, 2016. Taxpayers, this is a nationwide newspaper in Australia. It's probably, you would refer to it as like establishment centre-right paper. They're not very big fans of Donald Trump. So I guess an adequate comparison would be, say, the National Review, if that's fair. Probably the National Review. The Australian was probably close to the National Review, okay, in terms of its opinion pieces and whatnot. Taxpayers $75 million to Clinton Foundation. The Boston Globe alleges that CHAI, the Clinton HIV/AIDS initiative, did not disclose all of its foreign money to the department. It reported that foreign governments, wink wink, grants to the initiative had doubled from $26 million in 2010 to $56 million in 2013. What did we just watch, ladies and gentlemen? Did Hillary Clinton not tell us this herself?
These funds will support innovative approaches.
Sorry about the volume of this clip.
States will invest. Today, I am announcing that the United States will invest an additional $80 million to fill this gap.
So it's a big push.
These funds.
Okay. The United States invested an additional $80 million. The Australian taxpayer only invested an additional, what? Well, it doubled. Australian government figures obtained by the Australian show a steady flow of government money to the foundation as a, quote, technical implementing partner. Okay? Technical implementing partner. Government money to the foundation as a technical implementing partner since the 06-07 financial year. Okay? Technical implementing partner is perhaps a little more involved than someone who just throws money into the basket after service on Sunday morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Technical implementing partner probably defines someone who's more, you know, got their hands on the lever, so to speak. Just an alleging comment in passing. That year, Australian taxpayers spent $6.5 million through the Clinton Foundation. This increased to $9 million the following year. The peak year so far was 2012-13, with $10.3 million going to the foundation. Okay. Now, one more little article here for you. Two more. On screen, there you go. There they are, the girls. All power to them, girl power, and such and such. Quote, a Clinton victory may see Gillard take on new responsibilities in plans by the new US president to use her presidency to help improve the lives of women and girls. This is before the election, remember. But the language here is striking to me in that it's almost as though Hillary has already won. Make of that what you will. I'll repeat. A Clinton victory may see Gillard take on new responsibilities in plans by the new US president to use her presidency to help improve the lives of women and girls, especially in the developing world. But beyond what formal work she may do for these Clinton causes, Gillard could also become an informal confidant to the new US president on wider issues, including the challenges in the Asia-Pacific region that will face the new administration. Now, it all sounds very rosy, very nice. Remember, the FBI is investigating taxpayer money going to the Clinton Foundation, the highest amount in the last year of former Prime Minister Gillard, the lady on the right with the striking red-brown hair, in the last year of her presidency. Let's go right down to the bottom here and have a look at this. Da-da-da. Of course, Now, 2016, she's no longer Prime Minister, you understand, okay? She's no longer Prime Minister in 2016. She was out in 2012-13. But what became of Ms. Gillard, you ask? Well, my brothers and sisters, I'll have you know. Among the causes she has taken on since she resigned from federal parliament and returned to private life, Gillard linked up with the Clinton Foundation. Dun dun dun. Isn't that just the darndest thing? Isn't that just the darndest thing? Repeat. Among the causes she has taken on since she resigned from the federal parliament and returned to private life, Gillard linked up with the Clinton Foundation and became actively involved in the joint Clinton Foundation Brookings Institution No Ceilings program for female advancement, as well as the Clinton Global Initiative Girls Charge program, which aims to lift female education rates in developing countries, especially Africa. Wow. You don't say. You don't say. After a visit to the US last year, a meeting with Clinton, Gillard featured in an online video made by the Clinton campaign team advocating for Clinton to become America's first female president. And in July this year, coinciding with the confirmation of Clinton as the Democrat candidate for president, Gillard wrote an article for the New York Times titled First Woman to First Woman. She likes candy for breakfast. The more cynical out there may say jobs for the boys, but that would be incredibly sexist. It is jobs for the girls, girl power, go team. And don't you ever forget it. Just as a side note, interestingly, US President Donald Trump fires entire council advising on HIV/AIDS. You don't say. US President Donald Trump has fired the entire council that advises his administration about the HIV/AIDS epidemic. The Washington Post reported on Saturday. Patrick Sullivan, an epidemiologist at Emory University in Atlanta who works on HIV testing programs, told the newspaper that the members were informed by letter this week that their terminations were effective immediately. David says, that accent, boy, it's tough to listen to. Well, you're free to leave. You know, I don't block you. It's a two-way street. I don't block and you don't have to be here, brother. So you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to. Out the back door.